Papatūānuku. There was a time when I was as one with Rangi, but now we live far apart. Between us, but not separating us, were our many children, to whom we had given life and nourishment, and into whose hands had been given future life and growth. But this future life and growth required light and space. So our children set us apart, causing Ranginui the father and me, Papatūānuku the mother, great pain and anguish. Such was our suffering that our children turned me away from Rangi so that we could not see one another's pain. It was our offspring Tāne Mahuta who succeeded in thrusting us apart, and it was Tāne who later formed from red earth a new life shape. It was Tāwhiri Mātea who raged in jealousy against Tāne and Tangaroa. I hid Haumea Tike Tike and Roamatane away to keep them safe, while Tangaroa drew his children to him too, to shelter them. Tūmatoenga, strongest of all our offspring, withstood Tāwhiri's onslaught and stood astride earth where he will stand forever. And it was this great Tūmatoenga who first of all cut the sinews which bound Rangi and me, causing the flow of blood which reddened the now sacred ochre-coloured clay. It was Tūmatoenga who assigned to me the karakia of great abundance and who originated the hunting and cooking of food. So now Rangi dwells far above, giving space for growth. From his dwelling place he is ever witness to life and death, joy and sorrow, hope, despair, destruction, invention, jealousy, treachery, courage, faith and love, and the many earthly happenings. He directs the warmth and light that nourishes seeding towards and into the earthness that I am, while I remain the nursing parent, clutching to my belly our trembling, fire-gifted child, Ruamoko. Rangi and I are lovers set apart, yet love has not diminished, neither has sorrow. But love and sorrow find expression still, as my own mists of morning sighs rise to mingle with the caressing night dew tears of Rangi.
Te urunga tū, te urunga tapu, hi e hi. Te aho tapairuo, hine te iwaiwahi e. Hei e, te tuhua i te komata o te rangi hi e. Hei e, nā niho te te o hine nui hi e. Hei e, te kōrati oka mahuika hi e. Hei e, te tara koi o hine nui te po, hei e, hei. Tēnā tātou. Ka rere rā, aku mihi te mānuka tūtahi, te moana toi, te wakanei o mā tātua. Kia koutou, e hautaringa mai nei ki e nei pito kōrero, tēnā koutou. Ka huri oku whakaaro ki ngā mate o te motu, o runga whānau, o runga hapu, o runga marae. Ka tangi ana kaua tū nei kia koutou. Haere ki tō tātou tipuna kuia hine whakapau tāngata ki te pō. Koutou kia koutou tātou. Te hunga ora kia tātou. Tēnā tātou. Tōku kuia ko pane kire te maunga ko Waikare, te moana, ko Ngāti Ruapani te iwi. Tōku koraua ko tāwhiwau te maunga ko Rangitai ki te awa. Ko Ngāti Manawa te iwi, ko ngā hui e mupi tōku ingoa. Kia ora tātou. It's a privilege to be a part of this kaupapa, celebrating the atua wahine, and doing it through honouring the landmark book Wahine Toa by Robin Kahukiwa and Patricia Grace, which brought back to us the atua wahine, their stories, and interpretations of their images that have been stolen from us as wahine through colonial Christianity that demonized the Atua Wahine and us as creators of life. Yeah, so it's a real privilege and honour to bring a little bit of kōrero today. Oh, Papa Tuanuku, the mother. Papa Tuanuku, the mother, the source of life, the creatress of life, the oldest and most enduring of religions and spiritual traditions right around the world. And I guess the place to start is kōrero from the late Tohunga Huirangi Waikere Puru, no Taranaki ia. He said, he Māori tangata whenua take take. We're not Māori, we're tangata whenua. We are born from the womb of the mother Papa Tuanuku, the source of our identity, our sustenance, our survival, our inspiration, our healing, our spiritual revelation comes from the mother Papa Tuanuku. We don't come from Jesus. We don't come from some random male god in the sky. Just like my kuia Rangimari e Pere said, if God was a male, men would be having the babies. That's what she said. We come from the womb of the earth, Mother Papa Tuanuku, from Kurawaka. From Kurawaka, the vulva of the earth. Through our whakapapa tuhine ahuone, the first wahine. Kurawaka, the vulva of the mother Papa Tuanuku. Kurawaka, the vulva of wahine, because Kurawaka is us. Kurawaka is our whole sexual and sensual body, and it's a stolen ground, and we need to reclaim it. We need to reclaim the sacred original lands, the original territory, the original whare wānanga, the original stomping grounds of the people, which is Kurawaka, the feminine reproductive body. Which has been demonized and stolen through colonial Christianity and patriarchy. Kurawaka is the vulva, it's the sacred gate, it's the only way in and out of this world. It's the passage, the channel that runs between Te Ao Wairua and Te Ao Marama. We've been taught to feel ashamed of our own bodies. We find it very, very difficult to connect with our own tara, with the birth canal, with the inner temple of the cosmos, the womb. We find it hard to bring our awareness there because we've been disconnected from our own sacred ground. And taught to believe that it's the source of female inferiority and that it's spiritually defiling, which is crazy because we come from that house. We come from the blood of wahine. If you uplift wahine, the people will thrive. So one of the last things I want to say is he wahine he whenua. He wahine he whenua. We are the human counterpart of the mother Papa Tuanuku. We're the creators of life. He wahine he whenua. Wahine are the human counterpart to the mother Papa Tuanuku. Wahine he whenua. Wahine in the land of the source of life, of the creators of life. We are both known as the whare tangata. We kaitiaki whakapapa and the Māori of the iwi. So if you uplift wahine and revere the mother, revere the whare tangata, the people will thrive. If you oppress her, that impacts the well-being of the people. When you oppress wahine, because at the moment we've got a situation as tangata whenua where we have broken relationships to the to the atua wahine, and to the divine feminine, and we don't honour wahine. as the source of life and the foundations of the hapu and iwi, he wahine, he whenua. And because we have broken relationships with wahine, the consequence of that is broken relationships to Papa Tuanuku, the earth, the source of our identity and survival and well-being, which has led to climate crisis. The crisis that we face as humanity isn't the climate, it's the fact that we're disconnected from the mother. So the most important thing to me is that we reconnect and restore our relationships with the atua wahine and with Papa Tuanuku, the mother, with wahine, because Papa Tuanuku is the missing link. We'll never be whole until we recover our relationship with her, the source of life. Nō reira, Māori ora te whare tangata, Māori ora nā atua wahine, tēnā tātou.
Hine ahuone. I sneezed, and therefore I lived. Tāne, the procreator, set the parents apart so that there could be light and growth, so that people could be generated on earth. After the separation of Rangi and Papa, Tāne wished to justify his deed by joining the male and heavenly element of himself to the female earthly element that I am, in order to generate mortal beings. He searched everywhere for me, the uha of mankind, but I was hidden from him. He found instead the uha of plant life, and by joining the male element of himself to this female element, gave growth to plant life on earth. He found the uha of various creatures of earth, and gave growth to animal life. It was Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, who kept me hidden, keeping secret the hiding place of the uha of mankind. Then, when all was ready on earth for mortal beings, she told Tāne to form woman from clay at Kurawaka. So Tāne went to Kurawaka, the pubic area of Papa Tuanuku, and formed a new shape for me from clay, being assisted in this by the great being and the many godly beings of the high heavens, who gifted or shaped the different parts of me. Tāne blew on me, my eyes opened and I drew breath. I sneezed and was alive. But Tāne's searching was not yet over. He sought a way in which to combine our two elements and so produce mortal life. He searched my body, acting in its orifices. These first contacts produced earwax, tears, mucus, saliva, sweat and excreta. But in acting within my clitoral opening, our male and female elements came together and Hine Titama was conceived. Within my human shape, I, Hine Ahuone, held first human life. Hine Titama. My mother was formed from Papa Tuanuku by the hands of Tāne. I was formed in the womb of my mother when Tāne entered her, combining both male and female elements. But I did not know at first that Tāne was my father. I was their firstborn, named Hine Titama, being the dawn, and being therefore the daughter who bound earthly night to earthly day. I later became the wife of Tāne, not knowing that he was my father, and we parented several daughters. One day I asked Tāne who my father was. He would not answer me directly, saying only, "Put your question to the posts of the house." It was then that I knew that Tāne, my husband, was also my father. I was bone of his bone, and yet I was wife to him. I was angry and ashamed because of this, and decided that I could not continue either to be wife to Tāne or earthly mother to our children. So I left the world of light, telling Tāne not to follow me. I told him to remain with our children and to care for them in the world of light. I will go on to the dark world, I said, where I will welcome our children when their earthly life is ended. I will go in order to prepare an afterlife for them. where once again I can be a loving mother. I will be known from now on as Hine Nui Te Pō.
Ko rihi ta manu, tākiri mai te ata. Ka au, ka awatia. Tihei mauri ora. Ko nuku taurua te maunga, ko whangawihi te awa, ko rongo mai wahine ahau. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name is Tui Taho and I'm the Director of Public Engagement at the National Library. I wanted to start my kōrero today as a love letter to Robin. When Wahine Toa was launched, I was a 20-something-year-old trying to find my way in the world. Robin's paintings were thrilling. They were packed with stories and full of colour. It was the first time I remember Māori women being portrayed in art. And also these wahine atua were powerful, proud, sensual and beautiful. And it was the first time that I'd heard some of those stories, and it was even more wonderful that they were being told by these two incredible Māori women. Robin's described online as an influential figure in feminist and contemporary Māori art, and that she exhibits works whose values remain central to her core practice, Wahine Toa, woman of strength, power and courage. Her works are internationally and nationally renowned, and I'm really humbled that Patricia and Robin enabled us to use their work for inspiration for our talks. I couldn't afford the book the first time round, and I was really pleased when it was reprinted. You should buy yourself a copy and buy 3 more for 3 people that you love. My talk is about Hinititama and reflections on our physical self. I wanted to preface it all by saying it's a collection of personal thoughts that hopefully will come together and stimulate your own thinking. And these are my views, and they don't reflect the views of the library. Hinititama is my favourite of all of the paintings, but in my earlier days, I used to relate to her story as sad. It was about deception, lost love, losing her children, going off to be on her own. I guess our view of the world is formed by where we're at that point in time, and I was younger and less sure of myself, and that was the lens I was looking through. But hers is also a really powerful story of motherhood, sacrifice, determination, having really clear boundaries, self-love, rising above, and ultimately transformation, all on her terms. There was something about the story that sat a little bit uncomfortably with me, and that was the reference to incest. Even though that's not what I'm going to touch on today, it just didn't feel right to gloss over it, and at the very least I wanted to acknowledge it. The fact that Robin and Patricia touched on the subject of incest at that time was way ahead of their time. They were brave and courageous women. Hinititama felt shame, but not only did she feel shame, she expressed that she felt shame, and that's groundbreaking. Shame has, up until recent times, been a silent and solo activity. Talking openly about shame and vulnerability is pretty commonplace today, pioneered by the work of social anthropologist Brené Brown. You might have read some of her work or seen her Netflix talk. One of her books is a collaboration with a lady called Tarana J. Burke, and it's called You Are Your Best Thing. And it's a book and the book is a collection of short stories about Black people's experience of shame, and it came about during the Black Lives Matter movement. And there's a bit that I really loved, it really resonated with me, and I wanted to share it with you. It's what Brené calls foreboding joy. She says, "We're afraid that the feeling of joy won't last, or that there won't be enough, or that the transition to disappointment, or whatever is in store for us next, will be too difficult. We've learned that giving into joy is at best setting ourselves up for disappointment, or at worst inviting disaster. And we struggle with the worthiness issue. Do we deserve joy, given our inadequacies and our imperfections?" The writer of this particular story in the book is Austin Channing Brown, and they say, "But I have discovered a far more despicable agent of foreboding joy in the form of racism. For Black people and other people of colour, there is a level of apprehension that isn't brought from the uneasy feeling of undeservedness, but from the knowledge that racism is the silent stalker, always willing to wring joy from our lives. This level of foreboding joy is not in our heads, it's in the evidence of our experience." I guess one of the most straightforward examples of this in play in Aotearoa is what our parents and grandparents went through when they were physically punished for speaking te reo at school. And that intergenerational legacy is evident today, even though much has been done to restore the language. There's another aspect. In the He Tohu exhibition, I really love the wording around the suffrage petition. It talks about the fact that women fought for the right to have a say in the country, and I love that. The Māori women who signed the petition as part of the Christian temperance movement agreed that they would not partake of alcohol, tobacco, or mark themselves with the moko kawai. That was a big price to pay. Māori women were and are landowners, decision makers, tribal leaders. And yet it's ironic that women were fighting for rights that Māori women already had. I love that Robin has never shied away from the hard or uncomfortable, and her fearless work continues as she paints about our unique Māori experience and identity, and the pressing issues and ongoing injustices for Māori, through her medium of art. Seeing yourself and your experience in the world is really important. My name Tui is much more commonplace than it used to be, but there was never a personalised mug or necklace for me. I remember only a couple of years ago when I worked at Te Papa, I was trying out this new digital interactive that they had made, and it assigned you one of two names by default, and one of those names was Tui. When I went to try it out, and the name that popped up was Tui, which was the default, I thought that my clever mates at Te Papa were using artificial intelligence, robots, or there was a camera and someone was watching and they knew it was me that had just stepped up. It took me ages to finally get it, that actually that's the default, so half the people that were coming up were going to get that name. It's kind of funny, but it's also kind of tragic. How many tamariki experience life with their name never being spoken, never been displayed in the world, or mangled in mispronunciation? But the most insidious form of shame is not the embarrassment from others, it's the shame we heap on ourselves. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the relationship that women have with their bodies. A couple of examples. I experienced period poverty all throughout school and at varsity, but it wasn't called that back then. It didn't have a name. I would regularly have to decide between sanitary products and something important like food or rent, and food and rent would always have to win. It wouldn't have occurred to me to ask for help. It was my own private shame at the intersection between bodily functions and the burden of poverty. It's really awesome that it's talked about so freely today and that young girls are provided with free supplies. When I started working and earned my own pay, I would look at my stock of sanitary pads in the bathroom and I would think, man, Tui, you've really made it. One of the earliest feminist books I ever read was Fat is a Feminist Issue. I feel I've spent my entire life apologising for my fleshiness and my genetics. When I was younger, a stranger came up to me one day and told me I was beautiful, that I could even be Miss New Zealand one day. But then they glanced down at my legs and turned to the other person they were with and said, but her legs are fat. Skipping's really good for fat legs. The happy embarrassment that I had started to feel was quickly replaced by self-loathing. And, interestingly, from that point on, and as a result of some other events that reinforced that, I made a decision that I had the wrong body, or that I had the wrong head. I'm not quite sure. But essentially, I lived for many years like that, and at one point, not even ever looking at a full-length mirror. It occurred to me one day, much, much later, that actually I could have made quite a different decision. And it could have been something like, actually, wow, Tui, your head's really amazing. Imagine what my life would have been like if I had made decisions with the glasses half full as opposed to the glasses half empty. The other thing I could have done is got angry. Who are you to judge me, stranger? But I didn't. Over the last year, I've actually lost a lot of weight. And that's because I didn't want to be an older immobile person. I wanted to be healthy and I wanted to be able to get around. I thought that I would be louder and sassier when I lost weight, but actually I've become quieter because there is a less sabotaging dialogue going on in my head. The amazing Rose Petty spoke about this in our love or hate for ourselves, and she was a true inspiration to me. Remember a talk she gave about wearing colourful clothes and putting on her makeup in the morning, especially after she had recovered from a period of illness. She said as she applied her eyeshadow, "Eyes, I love you. Thank you." The big question is, what would Hine Titama say to all of that? As I said, I really love that kōrero around foreboding joy and the joy that we deny ourselves because we're not enough. There's something wrong with us. We feel shame and embarrassment. When actually, I think what we can learn from Hine Titama is that we are always offered the opportunity for transformation. And it's up to us to walk through that door and take it. All of this reminded me of a quote that I found online, which I kind of played around with, and I wanted to end my kōrero on it. And it goes something like this. I sat with my shame long enough until she told me her real name was anger. I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her real name was grief. I sat with my grief long enough until she told me, "Get your shit together, girl. Go out there. Be powerful." Kia ora.
Taranga. I am Taranga. I am both of this world and not of this world, inhabiting earthly land by night and by day the land of the manapo trees. Maui Portaki is my youngest child, the child of my old age. I gave birth to him on the beach, secretly. He was stillborn. Without proper ritual or ceremony, I cut off my top knot of hair, wrapped him in it, and put him on the sea to be cared for by the gulls and fishes. But I knew the power of my hair. I returned home not fully knowing what would happen, but believing that this child could one day seek me out, both in the earthly land and the land of the manapo trees. And indeed, one day this last-born child came looking for his brothers and me. He knew our names and the circumstances of his birth, so that I recognized him and wept over him. He was strange and most magical and most loving. He was both human and godly, and one day followed me to the land of the manapo trees, where I welcomed him and showed him to his father. "This is our last-born," I said. "He is called Maui Tiki Tiki a Taranga." And Makea Tūtara said to Maui, "That is a warrior's name. You will do great things for the people of the earth." "And one day," I said, "you will challenge your great ancestress, Hine Nui Te Pō, so that people will be immortal." But later, because of a mistake in the tohi ceremony, I knew that this final deed could not be accomplished. I felt much sorrow then, but I also felt great pride in knowing that this child was my own creation, that through my actions he had been given special powers which would be used in attaining great gifts for mankind.
Koutou e pai nei tēnā koutou. Kei ngā maunga whakahi o tēnā whaitua o tēnā whaitua. Koutou e whakarau i ka mai nei e mihi ana ki a tātou katoa i roto i ngā āhuatanga o te mate uru tā e rerere nei, ko ngā whakaaro nui ki a tātou katoa. Koutou ngā mana o te puna mātauranga o Aotearoa. Kia tika atu rā tēnei kia koutou, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou e manaaki mai nei i ngā mātā waka o te motu, e whakaahuru nei i ngā taonga a Koima a Koroma. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Hikurangi ki te uma, Ko nuku taime me hā ki te tihi. Ko te roi o te mata ki te rei o Waiapu. Ko te kura o te kahu, ko te huia i te awa, ko horoita. Ko te aru nei te taki o ue pōhatu, ko te kei o te tangata, ko te whānau arua taupare. Ko te kiri o te kōkā nei kua pēpere kau ko haia. Oi hoki nei e awa, e manawa, e tūhoi. Ngāti porau nuku rau, he iwi moke, he whanoke. Like Maui, I was born in secrecy. And the choice to give me up for adoption was no less traumatic for my mother than it was for Taranga to give her baby to the sea. And like Maui, I longed to know who my people were. It wasn't a feeling of emptiness. There was no void that I needed to fill. I was content, but curious to know the kaleidoscope of faces that stared back at me from the mirror, the colour of my eyes, the kink in my hair, the shape of my jaw. Shapeshifter, Pūnehu. I thought of my mother often and wondered how it must have felt to walk away from the hospital with empty arms. She had to trust herself completely. When Taranga gave her baby to the ocean, she didn't know what the outcome of that decision would be. Like my mother, she had to trust in something greater than herself. All they had was hope. Hope that this choice was for the best. Hope for forgiveness. Hope that one day we all meet again. Taranga returned home believing that Maui would seek her out. My mother returned home knowing that one day she would come find me. Taranga spent years seeing Maui in the eyes of her sons. She could imagine the shape of him, hear the sound of him through them, build a mental picture of what he might look like, measure his accomplishments by those of his brothers. When they met, she recognized him immediately. His brothers resented him for the attention she gave him. My siblings resented me for the pain that my mother had carried all those years, the guilt she wore every day. I used to think that if I walked past my mother in the street, she would know me. She would stop me and tell me that for the longest time, she had searched the faces of every child that she had ever passed, hoping to see me. As a customary practice, whāngai was done with the full knowledge of the hapu and the whānau. And there were several reasons to whāngai a child, but all of them focused on the extension of whānau, the strengthening of blood links. The child often knew who their parents were and their siblings. Adoption removes you from the village. It separates you from those things that link you to your origins and leaves you to recreate yourself from a mould that is unfamiliar to your bones. Adoption closes a door where whāngai holds the door open. Perhaps it was too painful to leave me with the village, to be confronted by her inability to care for me. Or maybe she believed that she deserved to be punished. After all, she'd left a marriage with 2 children, pregnant with somebody else's child, and then found herself pregnant with me soon after having my sister. I think she felt that closing the door was her only option. My adoption was celebrated by the family who raised me. It was a story told over and over again, animated, reliving every moment as if it had happened yesterday. Never ever judging my mother for the gift that she had given them. She was present in their prayers, and by their example she was present in mine. How incredibly fortunate was I to be adopted by people who came from the same place as me, whose faces looked like mine, whose bones felt familiar, and then to be whāngai to my nan who raised me ringatu from Monday to Saturday and Anglican on Sunday. God, church, language, culture, all that was present in my everyday life, but absent in the lives of my siblings. I had a solid understanding of who I was and where I came from. My siblings continued to struggle with all things that are natural to me. We are growing now. The resentment has faded, replaced by acceptance and love. My sisters are the gift our dying father left as we work together to make his final days comfortable. I'm the middle child, and for the first time I have a tuakana. We are mothers and grandmothers, and I've learned that I look more like my mother than they do. I sound like her, and I peer over the top of my glasses like she did. My tuakana is logical, methodical. She likes the security of planning and routine. My taina is impulsive, emotional, and adventurous. I am the perfect blend of them both. I'm grateful always for the life that I was given and for the life that I have. The women who raised me, my mama, my nan, and the woman who made it possible, my mum. Nō ngā rangi tūhāhā te wairua o te tangata. I tōna whakairatanga ka hono te wairua me te tinana o te tangata. I tērā wā tonu, ka tau tōna mauri, tōna tapu, tōna wehi, tōna iho matua, tōna mana, tōna ihi, tōna whatu manawa, tōna hinengaro, tōna auahatanga, tōna ngākau, tōna pūmanawa. Nā ka tipu ngātahi te wairua me te tinana, i roto i te kōpū o te whaia. Nō reira, aku iti, aku rahi, aku whakataitei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Mahuika, where do you come from? I called, and he replied, I come from the west. Then come and tell me what you want, I said, because you are a relative of mine. You must be Maui Potiki. I have heard of your deeds on earth. I am Mahuika, who keeps fire. Fire has been lost to the world, Maui said, so I have come to ask you for a flame. So I pulled out one of my flaring fingernails and gave it to him. He thanked me and went on his way. But when he was out of sight, he doused the fire in a stream. I did not know at the time that he had done this deliberately. He returned and asked me for more fire. So I pulled out my second fingernail and gave it to him. And again, once out of sight, he put out the fire. My mokai came running to me saying, "He is killing your children." Maui returned again and again, and each time, because he was a relative of mine, and because of a promise I had made to the people of Earth, I gave him fire. Soon I had given him all of my fingernails except for one. When he returned for this last nail, I became angry. "You ask too much," I called, and threw the last fire nail at his feet so that fire leapt and spread about him. He turned and ran with the flames pursuing him, and as fire began to surround him, he changed into a hawk so that he could fly above it. But when the rising flames caught hold of his wing feathers and scorched him, he dived down into a lake, only to find that the water was boiling. What a dilemma he was in then. He had to beg his ancestor Tāpiri Mātea to send rain. It was rain, the drenching rain, that saved Maui and almost destroyed me. Fire was almost lost to the world, but as the floodwaters rose about me, I sent the last seeds of fire into the earthly trees, the Kaikomako, Mahoe, Totara, Patete, and Pukatea, and asked these trees to be the guardians of fire forever.
Mea ro koe ki te whiua o te ahi o Mahuika I roto I a koe. Be in the presence of the flicker of fire that is within you. Mahuika, te atua o te ahi. Mahuika is the goddess, the Mare Kura, the atua of the flame, of the fire. Fire. Her fire was depicted in her fingernails, but she is more than that, because we know our energy comes out through our fingernails, but before it can get to our fingernails, it has traversed every cell of our body and every organ of our body. And when we wiri, it's Mahuika's fire being transferred where it's directed. So she is the internal fire within you. She is that combination of energy, of pure, purifying energy that is combined in every part of your body, that is ignited from day dot. And sometimes that fire burns vibrantly, like the picture on the wall at the back, and sometimes that fire can dim and almost get snuffed out. And it does get snuffed out when we die. So kua mutu tōna āhua I roto I a koe. So Mahuika is a real critical atua in our ability to stay alive during our lifetime. The keeper of your fire is her. And whenever you need her, you should call on her and talk to her, have a communion with her. Know that she even exists inside of you, inside of every cell of your body. And that's something that a lot of our wahine don't know. So I'm Raina Atareta Ferris, born a Shasha. I live in Porangahau, and this is our marae space here called Kurawaka. And this wall behind me represents the cosmos. We talk about the orokohanga o te ao Māori. And that centerpiece there depicts the first voice in te ao Māori is the voice of the wahine. And the first voice that opens the ritual of pohiri is wahine. So there's a whole significance dialogue behind that one huranga of us wahine. Anyway, I'm here. I've been asked to come and talk about Mahuika's contribution or manifestation to us during menopause. And all of those who have been through menopause, I'm sure, have some indication of what Mahuika does during our menopausal years. So over the years when we've researched her as a atua, she has become a beautiful wahine atua to talk about during menopause. And she manifests herself during menopause through providing a mechanism that can cleanse and purify and reset our bodies for the next taumata. And we feel that energy when we have hot flushes, night sweats, body sweats, mood swings, can't sleep. So anyone who has been through menopause will know what I'm talking about. And those are the times when she's active. Her energy is active. Mahui ka, the ka is the igniting of those energies inside you. So, but you are in control, and you are in control by being aware that there is the satua inside of us, guiding that principle, but also by being in communion with her and having a dialogue with her as if she was the doctor. So instead of going to the doctor, you can go inside and talk to her and seek counsel. Because there's a fabulous whakatauki that says, if you don't go within, you go without. So internalizing your mindset, your spirit, your thoughts to providing rongoa for yourself. And that's probably hard to do today because we're so conditioned to look outside for the help. So Mahuika is the atua that keeps your internal flame alight, keeps it glowing. It cleanses, it purifies, it burns. And in burning something, it provides space to reset something new. So when we go through menopause, as wahine, we've been through being young girls, young women. We've had our ikura. Every month she comes along and helps in that process of shedding the blood and cleansing the whare tangata for the next egg that may come down the ovary tubes, and prepares for that session in our life when we're ready to conceive children and bear children. And so menopause is a transition in our life that shifts us out of that phase into the next phase. And ruahinetanga is our word for menopause. So I'll try and use that word ruahinetanga. When we become wahine, we become ruahine. And ruahinetanga is the phase that we're going through the time of transition. And that can take years. It does take years. It's not something that happens overnight. So in order to survive the years of transition, of bodily transition, of mental transition, of spiritual transition, of emotional transition, we have to be aware of what's going on in our body. So in this instance, Mahuika is the atua you can call upon to help cleanse, help purify, help burn the things that you're not needing anymore. And then as you come through, make your way through the stages of ruahinetanga, you no longer produce eggs. So our ovaries stop producing eggs, and then we end up with our hormones being out of balance, and our ovaries don't produce estrogen or progesterone. So, and it can be quite a a stressful time for some women to get through, quite a harrowing time for other women. Some don't get through it fully intact, some do. The lucky ones get through it. And you come through your ruahenetanga and you end up in your wairuahenetanga, which is when you're then now able to step up into the taumata of the kaikaranga and take on the role of the guardian of the wairua, of the pai karanga. And that is the process of menopause, is preparing you, of ruahenetanga, is preparing you for your wairuahenetanga taumata. Wairuahenetanga. So what's that about? That's about you being able to work in the realm of wairua in an instant. Your consciousness is heightened. You become more able to see beyond the tangible. You can tap into spirit instantly because you've elevated your consciousness to another level of awareness. And ruahenetanga prepares you for that. Your ovaries are no longer producing eggs, and you're now available to hold the pai karanga 24/7. Because sometimes that is the expectation, that you're available 24/7. Not that we operate 24/7 because tikanga doesn't allow it. But that's the taumata wahinema. You're able to work in the element of wairua, but in your feminine grace as the hakui of your hapu. And so it's a taumata that has a lot of responsibility and obligation and a lot of reward too. Nō reira. Ai, ko pau te wā. Wairuahenetanga. So we have ruahenetanga, wairuahenetanga, and the next taumata after that is we return as wairua ki te rangi. So that's the cycle of life that we can look forward to if we're lucky enough to grow into that era of our lives. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Wiriranga whenua. I went for days without food, my stomach swollen with hunger. I did not know why my family was treating me like this, leaving me in my old age and blindness to starve. Then one day, when my face was turned to the west, I smelled food, and I smelled man. There is someone near, I called, but there was no reply. Because you come from the west and are therefore a descendant of mine, you will be safe, I called. I will not harm you. I will not eat you. Then I heard a movement close by. Come near, I said. You must be Maui. Maui the trickster. I've heard of you. He spoke gently in reply, and my anger left me. Why did you treat me so badly, throwing away my food? I asked. Why did you leave me to starve? It was necessary, he said. I have come to ask for your jawbone, which will help me in what I want to achieve. So I replied, That's right, I have been expecting you. You may as well have it, now that parts of me are already dead from starvation. I removed the bone from my decaying jaw, the bone of enchantment and knowledge, and gave it to Maui. Take it, I said. It will assist you in the earthly tasks you undertake. Take it with you when you go to seek out the ancestor of eels. Take it with you when you seek the new land. Take it on your journey to the sun. He said, I will keep it with me always. And he took it from me and washed it in the stream. It is my gift to you, I said, and through you it is my gift to the people of the earthly land.
He horore, he kiroria ki te atua, he maungarongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, i ngā atua wahine me ngā atua tāne, kei te mihi, e kuima, e koroma, tēnā koutou i ngā kaiwhakahaere mō tā rātou mahi i tēnei wānanga o te kaupapa i ngā atua wahine, he mihi. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko whakarara me rangi uru ngā maunga, ko mātātua ko te aroa ngā waka, ko mātauri tuku moana i te rohe whenua o te taitokiro, ko kaituna te awa i te rohe whenua o te aroa, ko te tāpui, ko te pāmu, ngā marae, ko ngā puhi, ko tapui ki ngā iwi, ko ngā tikura, ko Ngāti Marukukere ngā hapu, ko Ataria Shaman tuku ingoa, kei whangarei aho e noho ana, kei whanganui a tara i te pake ana aho. He kaituhi me kaiwa wahi, matua aho, nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora koutou, ko hui mai nei ki tēnei hui ki te whakarongo i ngā kōrero o Muriranga Whenua. Ka nui te koa mō tō koutou manawa nui ki te aro mai ki te tautoko i ngā kaupapa e pā ana ki ngā atua wahine. Kia ora koutou, my name is Ataria. I live in Whangarei, and in 2019 I completed my Masters in Māori Studies on the kaupapa, mana wahine and the characteristics of our atua wahine at Te Herenga Waka, ki Pōneke. My research involved reading a lot of puka puka and speaking to other wahine Māori across all ages on their experience with the atua wahine. Since then, I found a real passion in promoting the pūrākau of our atua wahine, as it is my perspective that through colonisation, their narratives have been purposefully withheld from wahine Māori to disempower us, and so wherever I can, I try to share their stories. One of the ways in which I have done this is I wrote a children's fantasy fiction novel, Hina and the Tohunga Portal, which was published by Huia Publishers, and has Mahuika as one of the characters in it, so not Muriranga Whenua, but Mahuika. And I also edited a collection of writings by wahine Māori on the atua wahine called the Atua Wahine Collection. If you're interested in either of these two puka puka, you can find more information on my website, atariashaman.com. Muriranga Whenua. So I'm going to kōrero to you today about Muriranga Whenua, a well-known tupuna wahine from the pūrākau of Maui. Well, in the story that we know, Muriranga Whenua is an old and blind elderly woman who is dependent on her relatives to bring her kai. And her moko Maui, her cheeky, mischievous moko Maui, tells the whānau he will take food to her, but instead he throws the food away until she nears starvation, and only then does he approach her. But in the story, before Maui reveals himself, Muriranga Whenua already knows that it is him. This is an important aspect, I think, because it reveals her abilities as matakite, or someone with the ability to see into this future, someone with special intuitive, spiritual faculties. And one of the things that came up in my master's research was, and my interviews with wahine Māori, was that, quite a few of them could identify matakite within their immediate whānau. Matakite were mothers, aunties, and grandmothers, just like Muriranga Whenua. I believe, well, what I take from this story, an important aspect, is that it highlights the spiritual powers of wahine, such as matakite. Know that Maui asks Muriranga Whenua for her jawbone because of its magical powers, knowing that it will help him to achieve his goals. And in spite of his behavior with the food, she still gives it to him as a gift for her descendants, which also highlights unconditional love. Muriranga Whenua as a queer has an unconditional love for Maui, and no matter that he starved her, she still loves him and she still wants to help him achieve his goals. In the version of the story by Kahua Kiwa and Grace, 1984. The reason given in the story is that her body is already decaying and she will no longer need it. Maui then uses this jawbone to fashion a hook, which he uses to fish up to Ika ao Maui, and later as a patu to slow Te Rā, the sun. In my perspective, Muriranga Whenua's jawbone is symbolic. Although kauai means jawbone in Māori, it can also mean knowledge. And instead of literally removing and giving Maui her jawbone, she gives him her knowledge. She gives him knowledge and mātauranga through speech, or the moving of her jaw, through kōrero, through speaking, just like what I am doing right now. I'm moving the jawbone. Obviously, with age, we all know this, comes experience and learnings throughout life. And so we value the whakaaro of our elders, and we know that we have much to learn from them because they have experienced many more days and nights than we have. So we see in the story that important knowledge that Maui, the mokopuna or Muriranga Whenua, needs in order to complete the tasks that we know he's destined to do, are transferred to him from his elder, his kuia, Muriranga Whenua, and that this happens through the moving of her jawbone and the sharing of her kōrero with him. And that kind of demonstrate this feeling, if you remember yourself back to a time where you were sitting with elders, older, more knowledgeable people, and really felt like, you know, you kind of had this knowing like, oh, I should be listening to this, I should be, listening to this. Like something very special was taking place around you as they spoke, and you were sitting there, a younger and less worldly person, trying to make sense of it all. That's the feeling I'm talking about. That's the transfer of knowledge from someone older down to the next generation. And perhaps that's what Maui felt when Muriranga Whenua was sharing her jawbone with him too. This story positions Muriranga Whenua as a repository of knowledge. And when this knowledge is given to Maui, he uses it to shape his world, to bring the context or the meaning of the story into our modern times. I don't personally think this is any different to mokopuna who are raised by the elders today, or privileged enough to spend a lot of time with the elders and to learn the lessons from the elders, and then use those lessons to care for themselves and their communities to live fulfilled lives. There are 3 kuia in the Maui narratives that I know of. Mahuika as fire, Muriranga Whenua as the bones of the land, and Hinenui Te Pō as the never-ending cycles of life and death. All 3 represent important aspects of Māori life that Maui has to learn about. And he has not just given this knowledge, he has to earn it. Of course, as well as guiding their male descendants, the kuia has the important role of guiding younger Māori women too. The story of Muriranga Whenua and Maui is symbolic of the transfer of knowledge from an elder to their mokopuna in order to set them up for success in this world. In this particular version, Muriranga Whenua is a kuia, a wise woman. Maui goes on to have great success, and for his deeds still to be shared many hundreds or perhaps thousands of years later, if he was ever a real person, demonstrates the importance of the relationship between tamariki and our elders. The messages in the story are still very relevant to us today, and I hope that this kōrero on Muriranga Whenua has been useful for you, and perhaps spark some of your own whakaaro around this narrative. Thank you very much for listening.
Hinenui Te Pō. It was because of shame that I left the world of light for the dark world, and promised to await my children and their descendants, to welcome them here in Rarohenga, Now the time is near. Now, at last, this Maui comes towards me, coming in the hope that he will conquer me and that the children of hard-won light will never know death. When I have defeated Maui, I will thereafter welcome my descendants in death. But I do not cause death and did not ordain it. Human death was ordained when human life was ordained. And we, my father husband Tane, Taranga, who gave special birth to Maui, Makea Tūtara, speaker of the tohi rights, Maui Potiki, and I, Hinenui Te Pō, are merely the instruments, the practicalities, and the sequence of death. See Maui now. In the world of light, he has achieved all he can achieve. He comes now to challenge me in the world of no light, seeking to achieve what cannot be achieved. To defeat death, he will need to gain living entry into my womb and living exit, but this he cannot do. Now he stands at the edge of light, exuberant, changing from one disguise to another, while the little birds watch, excited and trembling. My vagina, where he must enter, is set with teeth of obsidian, and is a gateway through which only those who have already achieved death may freely pass. He will attempt to enter in life, hoping that I am asleep, but he will be cut in two, meeting his death. Only then can he be made welcome. Come, Maui Tiki Tiki a Taranga. Your bird companions chuckle and flutter at the strange sight of you, but they are not your undoing. There is one purpose only for these obsidian teeth. In this, your last journey, where you will give your final gift to those of earth, the gift not of immortality, but of homecoming following death. Come, survivor of seas, lengthener of days, obtainer of fire, fisher of land, keeper of the magical jawbone of Muriranga Whenua. Death is yours, your chosen death is yours. Your deeds will be spoken of in the world of light, but you will never be seen there again. I will wait at this side of death for those who follow, because I am the mother who welcomes and cares for those children whose earthly life has ended.
No mai rā, te haunga wahine, I haere mai koe, I ahene te iwa iwa. I ahu mai koe, I ahene ahu one. Ki runga whakairia, haumi e hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā koutou katoa whānau. I te taho tōku matua ko Carl Eldridge tonu ingoa, mai I te Eldridge whānau I Wikitoria, I ahi te reria ko Ngāti Pākehā ia. I te taho tōku karawa ko Tirito o te rangi Tirito tonu ingoa, ko Kurahaupoto waka, ko Maunga Kāhi te maunga, ko Whangawehi te awa, ko Tuahuru te marae, ko Rongoма wahine te iwi. I te taho o tōku kuia ko Murirangi Whenua Rāmeka tonu ingoa, ko Takitimu te waka, ko Puketapu te maunga, ko Ngaruroro te awa, ko Omahu te marae, ko Ngāti Kahungunu te iwi. So, kia ora everybody. Thank you so much to the National Library for having me come and speak with you all today. I'm very grateful for many things. In preparation for today's kōrero, I reflected on my gratitude, particularly to Hinenui Te Pō, and what she contributes in my life, what she manifests in my life, both as a wahine Māori, but also as somebody that's worked in palliative care for over 10 years at Mary Potter Hospice in Wellington, caring for and with our Māori whānau in this region. It is unlikely, and I'm not somebody that can remember a 12-minute speech, so you'll have to forgive my wandering eyes and bobbing head as I look at my notes. So once again, I'm thrilled and honoured to be able to speak today. Thank you so much to Whaia Pat and Whaia Robin Kahukiwa for creating this amazing pukapuka. So I reflected upon my gratitude to Hinenui Te Pō,
how this whakapapa to this atua, in fact to this tūpuna, and what that whakapapa legacy is, how that rocks up in my life. The Puka Puka Wahine tour was my first exposure to Hine Nui Te Pō. My grandparents were gone before I hit my teens, and pondering atua didn't align with my mother's Anglican view of the world. This text and others by Whaipat, Mihi Peka Edwards, Ani Makaire, all inform my sense of being Wahine Māori. Alongside Kaumātua, my grandmother, my mum, my tuakana, the amazing Te Rito Wahine in my family, alongside some awesome Hōhaere and Kaiako, have informed how I am in the world. I believe the book Wahine Tour was a pivotal text for Indigenous women everywhere, and in a sense helped to introduce me to me. The opening of Hine Nui Te Pō's story starts out, "And it's because of shame I left the world of light for the dark world and promised to await my children and their descendants to welcome them here in Rarohenga." That was her perspective. The reader's perspective can and should be whatever we make of it. I've thought about that shame that she feels. Was it a shame of incest, shame of being duped, a shame of not knowing her true heritage or who her father was? Yet in a sense, who else could it have been? I imagine her response to the situation would align with how many, many women would respond in her position. The word incest makes many of us recoil, the shame, the guilt, and the responsibility that people carry. But I tell myself, do not be constrained by mankind's physical or metaphysical perspectives when exploring atua. It is an unfathomable realm of multiple potentialities. If Tāne was amongst the greatest atua, he may well have had the very loving ability to present himself in any old āhua that would be most attractive to Hine Titama. I think of the Hautotu feats of Maui the demigod, but just imagine what Tāne could have done. Hine Nui Te Pō has taught me that shame and whakamā should be left with the instigator, not the recipient of the harm, and I will shun shame. Yet Hine Titama accepted the truth of her situation. According to Witia Himaira, in navigating the stars, she decided to create a path, Tahiki Roa, the path of death. She farewelled Tāne at the gateway, Te Kuwatawata, and said she would meet her children in the courtyard beyond at Rarohenga. She would create an alternate realm, safe from the jealous taunts of Whiro, who wished harm to Tāne's offspring. Her children would continue through the pathway to be met by the tūpuna into Aowairua. She's taught me that we can ascend adversity, recreate ourselves, and make new futures and realities. A woman's sense of unconditional love and motherhood, can I believe, whakapapa back to Hine Nui Te Pō. I recall walking with my youngest son one day. As a young fella, he was wont to pondering potential feats and episodes in his own head, all of his own ego and his greatness. In his mind's eye, he always emerges as an exceptionally brilliant or handsome, protective, strong, almost smart-assed character, whatever his fictional scenario needed. Whilst out walking one day, he said to me, "How much do you love me, Mum?" With little thought and quick response, I said, "I'd kill for you, I'd die for you," and kept on walking. He stopped and I looked back at him, impatient to keep on moving. He seemed a bit shocked or taken aback. He looked at me curiously and weirdly. "That's pretty raw, Mum. That's pretty raw, Mum. That's cold, scary shit." I thought it was plainer than breathing myself. I said to him, "Why do you ask, son?" It seems he was thinking about a parallel existence where someone had abused or maimed he and his brother. He was wondering how differently his parents might respond to such a situation. Probably hoping we'd tear them limb from limb in some boss retribution. He asked a further question. What if someone killed Dad? Would you take them out? Would you have died for Dad? This was too easy, given the recent separation. No, I wouldn't. That would leave you exposed and parentless. And it's different. Hine decided that her children's spiritual pathway to the ancestors was her most important role. She sacrificed living with them in the light for this. What a sacrifice, and what aroha. Hine shows me there is no greater love than that of a mother for her child. In palliative care, our role is to enable a good death, where the person and the whānau are prepared as best as possible for the transition. Sometimes I ponder my own good death, and I'm not the only weirdo to have started a Spotify playlist for my tangihanga. On D-Day, I want crisp cotton sheets, light, flowers, music, and a cocooning in aroha. It's a feminine space that smells good. I don't want noise, but light laughter is okay. But mostly I want a vise that helps me be composed for release, a space fat with mauri. My death will be unique to me, as yours will to you. I think about karanga. I wonder what Hane's karanga will sound like. I wonder what the karanga of my tūpuna beyond will feel like. I know some of that karanga responsibility for myself, what that is for me, and particularly welcoming my mokopuna into Te Ao Marama when the time comes. Working for the dying isn't for everyone, yet the manaaki of whānau and the individual, when they are their most vulnerable, is a rewarding privilege. It's a tapu time and it deserves reverence. I have seen that the Wairua transition, although usually peaceful, may be uncomfortable. The physical transition occasionally painful. We see the best of people and we see the worst of people. We see people transformed and reconciled before death, and we see others die as willfully and messily as they have lived. I've seen the last generation of a lineage die. I've seen people express their love in the strangest of ways. I've seen mokopuna enabled and empowered to care for their grandparents in ways that their own parents just could not. I sense that dying may require vigilance and protection, spiritually and physically, from those of ill will or ignorance. For me, my whānau and the nannies at Omahu will protect me at the wharenui, and Hinenui Te Pō has made a safe realm to grant me safe passage beyond. She will see me safely to my tūpuna, this I know. Wahine Māori karanga to new life, the dead, tūpuna, atua, te taiao, and we have a pivotal role in protecting Wairua. Some actually deliver and release Wairua at Te Kuwatawata. Some hail tūpuna to our closer realms to receive our dying. Some ask tūpuna to wait until the whānau are ready. Wahine are at the crossways of life and death, and Hinenui Te Pō reminds me of my whakapapa role and obligations as wahine Māori. The last character reflected upon this pūrākau was, of course, Maui Tikitiki a Taranga. Maui Te Wero, Maui Te Hautotu. Māori the ADHD is how I think of him. For me, Maui was the annoying class clown in primary school, the elder male cousin that pinked my first bra strap and relished in my blush, the adolescent man boy who left me uneasy, not knowing if he was joking about something or not, the one that tortured my teachers and left me horrified and delighted in equal measures at their audacity. He's the tani energy that just doesn't know when to stop. And older, knowing I was being played for cuddles, but bought my son those essential pair of pants all the same. When at dusk, I'd give in to an intimacy, yet well aware that the dawn may bring some tired and smug regret. Hinenui Te Pō was free of all of that. She dealt with absolutes and certainties, no shape-shifting dancing foolishness for her. She welcomed literally into her, survivor of seas, lengthener of days, obtainer of fire, fisher of land, keeper of the magical jawbone of Muriranga Whenua. Maui found his death in the teeth of her obsidian vagina, that powerful space that still holds a timeless yet deadly fascination. Death was not, nor will ever be conquered. Hinenui Te Pō has left me with a whakapapa of purpose and belief. In almost closing, this is a summary of how Hinenui Te Pō may influence our lives. Shun shame. Don't hold that which belongs to others. Understand our obligations and roles as tangata Māori. We can rise and create new futures out of adversity. There is no greater love than that for a mother and child, and we will sacrifice for it. we should hold tapu and make beautiful all things pertaining to death. Let's live with purpose and self-belief, and also take no shit from boys. To all of our storytellers, writers, artists and performers, thank you for continuing to push and strive to allow our people to see and learn about ourselves through you. To end my kōrero today, I won't share a waiata, I will share a poem by Hone Tūwhare to honour the whakapapa of Hinenui Te Pō in each and every of you. It is called Hinenui Te Pō, the Fat Bitch. Now if, a big if, I were a rangatira, oh boy, what tribute-paying tribes would I command to kneel beneath the elegant taihara of your succulent beauty and to swear allegiance to your lips, your saucy eyes, your rhythmic hips and bums. Oh yes, your big flat feet, what jewels I would fling. The stars shall be your pearls, actually fragmented purple power shells. The world, oh yes. The world shall be a huge black oyster, pearls on a muka flax string, and you shall have orange-tinted clouds to wear at sunrise, for decorative purposes only, strictly, if I were a rangatira. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Haere rā whānau.